Totally Football Show. Today, Forest fired, part 4. Dim draw with Wolves sees Dyche thrown to them. We check in on the City ground and plans to bring in pub-loving Victor Pereira. Yes, that one. Then, other huge news from Wednesday's games. Burnley winning, Haaland scoring, Liverpool finally ending the Black Cats' amazing home record. All that, plus a look ahead to the weekend's FA Cup fixtures in this Totally Football Show. Thursday the 12th of February. So good to have you with us, listener. Here in the studio, Liam Tharme's with us. Hi, Liam.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you too.
Take a sip of coffee. And,
yeah, go for it.
I thought I'd be third on the list.
Joe.
I'm in esteemed company.
Well, you can tuck in now because we'll have a hello with Charlie Eccleshare.
Hello.
And also with Duncan Alexander.
Hello.
Very shortly, we're going to be joined by Daniel Storey to discuss events, because it's been a quiet midweek. Tuesday's games saw Thomas Frank departing from Tottenham Hotspur. And then in the early hours of Thursday morning, interesting timing with this one, Sean Dyche getting the heave-ho at Forest. It's their third sacking after Nuno Espirito Santo and his public falling out with Marinakis and Edo. And then Ange Postecoglou, who lasted a full 39 days. And now Sean Dyche goes too. Why that kind of time of day? Were you shocked when you saw the news this morning, did you, Duncan?
Yeah, I was up very early and saw it and wasn't surprised. We kind of knew it was coming. Marinakis likes to make these decisions post-game, so I think hence the timing. I don't think people were thinking of the American time zones. It was more just, as it happens, it happens. I mean, it's interesting, obviously, because it's the first time in Premier League history a team have had 4 permanent managers. I mean, they'd got 3 before the clocks went back. Dyche had a
How far can they go? Double figures?
I was going to say, if they keep tracking, there's at least one more after this next one, isn't there? At the pace they're at.
Yeah, I mean, a few people have remembered Leeds from a few seasons ago when they had 3 plus Skubala as a caretaker briefly. Obviously, Big Sam came in late doors that season. I know you don't like that.
Can you have late doors?
Oh, not
That's
this
one for
weekend.
your...
Yeah. We've been through this. I don't like it because it's wrong.
Well, I think you can have it in the theatre. But anyway, Sam came in saying...
There's one place you can't have late doors. They're very strict about that.
No, you can come in the door late.
They lock it, surely.
You could break in with an axe.
Then it's just
the very entirely different
the very axe that's been wielded in the Premier League this week can be used. Yes.
But you say as well, Duncan, there wasn't a surprise, which obviously it isn't because of Marinakis, but they were in sort of fine form. I mean, they've had 8 points from the last 6.
Yeah, here's Gazzarelda saying, if Forest were looking for a new boss in their situation, being 3 points clear of the drop, with 12 games to secure safety, wouldn't they look to a manager who got 8 points from his last 6 Premier League games, like Sean Dyche?
But I think it's less form, it's more kind of
vibe?
The direction and vibe. Yeah, I mean, Dyche kind of threw the players under the bus after they went on the FA Cup against Wrexham. He was critical after some Braga game in the Europa League. I think, unsurprisingly perhaps, there's a lot of turmoil behind the scenes in Nottingham Forest, and I think the players, maybe have the ear of the chairman sometimes.
One man who called this for us in Sunday night's show is top Premier League chronicler and Forest fan Daniel Storey, who was there at the City Ground on Wednesday for the Dyche denouement, and is with us now to tell us all about it. First of all, is it a sad story this morning, Daniel?
I think it's a fairly inevitable story once Forest didn't win. You say I called it. I didn't think that Forest would have more shots than Dyche. A Dyche team had ever managed in a Premier League game before, 35. It sort of says everything you need to know about Forest, that they... If they hadn't missed a 6-on-1 chance in the first half, then Sean Dyche would probably be the manager this morning, and everyone would think, well, they're going to stay up, so it'll be all right. They didn't take that 6-on-1 chance.
That was incredible. I can't recall seeing a cavalry charge like that before.
There was that one, it wasn't as many people, but Liverpool against Arsenal at Anfield, December 23, and it's basically Rice against, I think, like five Liverpool attackers,
like
and Trent hits the bar, and it looked mad. But,
it looked like a pitch invasion or something.
It looked like
but then they all get back at the same sort of time.
Right.
By the time the Forest player actually has the shot, they're all sort of flooding back into the picture.
I was desperate for sort of Dominic Szoboszlai style, someone to pull back Lorenzo Luca before he could shoot and just take the red card and free kick, and we move on and probably win the game 1-0. But yeah, it was a mad old night at the City Ground, but it did end with pretty horrific boos, some jeering for Amari Hutchinson, who cost nearly £40 million in the summer and hit 2 consecutive corners with his left foot straight out of play before getting to the goal. Dyche at full time tried, the sort of TV cameras panned him and he tried to do a sort of half clap to the crowd and then realised that probably wasn't going to fly this evening and just headed straight down the tunnel. He was sacked by 11 p.m. And yeah, I think it's one of those sackings where people will say, well, the points were all right, so I'm surprised this has happened.
That's what I said, Daniel.
I can't believe anyone would say
that. I mean, I was just presenting the idiot's view, obviously.
And look, I get that. And Charlie, you are a fellow Premier League chronicler, and that opinion is perfectly valid when you look at points per game. What I would say is that if you take out a bizarre win at West Ham in which Forest were awful and didn't deserve to take anything from the game, they have 6 points from the last 9 Premier League games. That includes games against Palace, Leeds, Wolves, Everton, 3 of those at home. They've taken this run of games of Wolves at home, Palace at home and Leeds away was sort of sold as saving season, and Forest took 2 points from the 3 games. And I think probably whatever the table tells you are now more likely to go down than West Ham just because of this sheer chaos there, while irony of ironies, Nuno sits there fairly smugly looking to take us down.
But no FA Cup this weekend, Daniel. Fenerbahce is going to be the next fixture that's in the Europa League, the first leg of your playoffs to reach the last 16 of that competition. So there's a bit of time for Marinakis to make his next move. Who do you think's on his notepad?
I think it'll be Vitor Pereira, who, there's this bizarre situation in the Premier League where Nuno could feasibly manage 2 teams this season and they both go down, and feasibly Vitor Pereira could also manage Wolves and Forest and they could both go down. He's a fairly easy appointment in that he has managed in the Premier League. He's available. He did keep Wolves up with a sort of mini great escape last season. He has managed Olympiacos, worked with Marinakis before.
I mean, briefly, but he won a double there, no?
Yeah, and it's always briefly with Vitor Pereira, so let's not...
Well, also with Marinakis as well, yeah.
That's fair. But the kind of the wider lens shot here is that, as I said, if Forest score a 6-on-1 last night, then Dyche is probably there. And that isn't a way to run a football club.
No, also, Dan, don't you feel that it's just totally arbitrary, the order in which Dyche has come in? If he hadn't done this stint, they'd probably be sacking someone else and he'd be about to come in. It's not as if it's because of a philosophy or anything like that. It's totally reactionary and kind of who's available at the given moment.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a bit of both in that Forest wanted to overhaul the playing style with Nuno. They appointed Edu, which is the first massive mistake of the season. Nuno then fell out with Edu, and so he left. Mistake number 2. They then completed that overhaul of the playing style by appointing Ange Postecoglou, this sort of tactical dogmatist, but in a completely different way to Dyche. He left with a 0% win ratio. I see he's on the overlap this morning, or Stick to Football this morning, sort of talking about criticising former clubs. I get that, but he was wretched at Forest. He left. That wasn't a mistake to get rid. It was to appoint. They then went for Dyche, which made some sense at the time. But it's almost as if Forest had Dyche for too long this season. That appointment was just too early. If we'd have done that in January rather than October, it probably works.
That's what I mean. If he was coming in now, he'd probably come in and steady the ship.
So from a Vitor Pereira
at the
point
end
of
of
view,
November, save them for Christmas.
Right.
You're just doing it at the wrong time.
But in Vitor Pereira terms, this might be kind of peak Vitor Pereira appointing moment.
I think they are fairly fortunate to have an obvious identity of next coach in this situation, because you talk to sort of Premier League inverted commas normies and they'll say, well, who would go and manage Forest now? And it's like, well, Vitor Pereira probably would. And there were reports of players not enjoying training under Dyche. For all the 35 shots last night, about 7 of them were from central defenders outside the box. There was a lot of bad crossing. It wasn't, they created a few good chances, but they weren't very good in terms of execution. And they'll hope to get another lift. They are now the only ever Premier League club will be with 4 managers in the same season. They will hope that one last salvage job allows them to survive. They're slightly unfortunate, I suppose, in that it's probably going to could take 40 points to stay up this season, where they already have enough points that would have kept them up last season. So that's a slight lurch in Premier League, but they're a club that exists 3 games away from existential crisis at all times, Forest. And putting Dyche into that scenario, I think in hindsight, was probably always going to end this way, when he was going to have to be there for 7 months, not 7 games. They might well go down this season, and they deserve it if they do, because they finished 7th last year. They were bestowed with plenty of advantages for doing so, including a £200 million summer transfer budget, and they wasted that, and they've wasted pretty much everything since, including 35 shots last night.
Yeah, I think this all counts a lot against Dyche as well. There was a lot of talk back in his Burnley days, back in his Everton days, about how good could he be with a team of quality players. And I know they've been without Chris Wood for big parts of the season. They've sold Alanga, who were two of the real key players that team was built around. But when I've watched them this season in recent games, they've been pretty abject going forward. It's basically been, to what Daniel was saying about the execution, get the ball wide and cross it. And did a piece on this a while back, and someone left a really great comment on it saying they're playing like they're playing with the ghost of Chris Wood up top, thinking he's going to be there in the box, and he just isn't. And there's no real kind of variety for a team which has really got a lot of internationals in there. Like, it's a good squad. It's a top half European squad.
You could almost say a Forest without Wood is no Forest at all.
Well, that's much better than what I was going to say, which was only that isn't that what they got Lorenzo Luca for? And look how that turned out. But
What happened to the team that went and beat Liverpool 3-0 and Spurs 3-0 at home? I mean, how do we rewrite those results, or was it just that it worked well as a new manager bounce and then petered out?
Yeah, I think the general theme of the tenure was that there were some excellent wins. They beat Leeds 3-1 at home, they beat Tottenham 3-0 at home, beat Liverpool 3-0 away, Brentford 2-0 away. They just never really seemed to gain any momentum, and the defeats seem to linger long in the memory than any of those wins. And if I thought Dyche had two strengths, one would be organising a defence at set pieces. That's not really improved. And the other would be when you do get something to really dig your teeth into, to kind of keep as yours and to use as fuel for the next games. I thought he'd be really good at that, and he's been unable to do that as well. It's simply a case that the strengths they thought they were getting with Dyche are not there anymore. It's also worth saying that opposition teams have completely worked Forest out under Dyche, which is give them the ball and they struggle to score, because Dyche's now played, I think, 10 matches as a Premier League manager with 62% possession or more, last night being the 10th, and he's not won any of those games. So you let Forest have the ball, as Liam says, they'll cross it and cross it and cross it, or they'll pass it around and then cross it. And it just doesn't lead to many high-value chances.
I was curious to be reminded, Daniel, that all of this has kind of come about because of the falling out between Nuno and Edu back at the start of the season. Is there any feeling at Forest that they backed the wrong horse on that? Every single supporter is shouting exactly that at the moment to each other on WhatsApps, online, at the game last night. Yeah, they did back the wrong horse, and they didn't need... In hindsight, they didn't need to overhaul everything after having their best season since 1995. That was an absolute nonsense to do so. I understand the need for ambition, or the desire for ambition, but it can hold you down as much as it can take you up if you let it kind of strangle what was working. And that's what's happened at Forest. They backed the wrong horse. It was interesting in January that two of Edu's, or Keir Jarabchian's clients, who is also Edu's agent in Douglas Luiz and Zinchenko, their loans were ended. Vitor Pereira is a Jorge Mendes client. Nuno was a Jorge Mendes client. Forest have worked with Jorge Mendes before. I don't know if that's a symbol of things changing or just Uncle George giving them a ring when they're desperate. We will wait and see. But they've completely balked everything from pretty much the last day of the season onwards this summer. It didn't help that they didn't know which European competition they were in, and that delayed transfer business. That wasn't their fault at all. But everything else on that point has made things harder rather than easier. And the great kind of, not tragedy, that's too strong a word, but the great disappointment of this season is that I think every Forest fan thought, however disappointing the league campaign will be, at least we'll have that first European season. And now those European games are everything they could do without. They've got Liverpool and Manchester City in the next two league games. If that's going to be for a new manager. That's why I would have got rid of Dyche if you weren't convinced. I would have got rid of him after the Wrexham FA Cup defeat in January, which was before Arsenal at home, and then they had this run of games where they really could take on points. Now they're left with 2 games against Fenerbahce, Liverpool, Manchester City, Brighton away, Tottenham at home, which is fairly season defining.
To be fair to Dyche as well, he did draw with Arsenal and beat Brentford. I mean, it wasn't like he totally frittered away those points.
But then you also lost 3-0 and 2-0 to Everton. You also lost 2-0 at home to Brighton. You also lost, so on and so on.
You can make stats say anything you want, Daniel.
An Everton squad he largely built, well, partly built.
Yeah, he said that in the press conference after. He was like, I've coached them well, and it was a bit like, I wouldn't be saying that now.
Daniel, Storey, what a week it's been. It's going to be an incredible Uber Eats advert that with Thomas Frank, Sean Dyche there. Not quite sure what the location will be, but
Pages.
banter.
They can have some fun with it.
Well, Charlie, Wednesday night you were watching City putting the pressure on Arsenal, closing the gap with the leaders to 3 points with a 3-0 win against the Cottagers. City always beat Fulham. Good Lord, they've won their last 20 meetings. That's the longest winning run any side has ever had against any other team in English football history. Wow.
It's crazy.
How did this one rank among them?
Probably somewhere in the middle. I can't say I can remember all of those wins. It was very comfortable.
It looked really uncomfortable. I mean, it looked miserable out there in the rain.
Yeah, and on the rain, I do wonder if all the rain has contributed to all these midweek sackings. Managers look particularly forlorn, sort of stood there in the pouring rain. There's that pathetic fallacy element.
And we know they can't use an umbrella because
they can't use an umbrella, so they just stand there getting drenched, looking really sad and pathetic, and more sackable, I think. But yeah, luckily neither of the managers involved in this game are in that conversation. No, City were really good. I think everyone sort of thought that their win against Liverpool was kind of the launch of their title charge. They'd been on the precipice. They were 9 points behind, then got back to 8, and then obviously by winning made it 6. And they carried on that momentum. I think, getting Reuben Diaz back is really significant. It means they've got Diaz and Guehi as a partnership, whereas for the last sort of 6 weeks, they've been without kind of either one or, because Gvardiol and Diaz went off injured at the start of January, and Rodri, it looks like, is sort of getting back to being able to play pretty regularly. So they've got a bit of that solidity back, and that's the thing that they've been lacking. And then this sort of fabled run that everyone's been sort of waiting on all season, maybe this is going to be the time, because they've been in dreadful form, obviously, before that Liverpool game.
Was it 1 win in 6? I think?
Yeah. And back-to-back wins now, keeping the pressure on.
I mean, Liverpool was impressive, but they do always beat Fulham. So
yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's a weird thing because also it's kind of hard to talk about either a City game or an Arsenal game without knowing what's happened with the other, because it's so zero-sum. I mean, like the weekend that's just happened, Arsenal beat Sunderland on the Saturday, went 9 points clear. That seemed like quite a significant result. By the end of the weekend, the way it was being talked about was as if they'd sort of lost ground somehow, because obviously City won the much harder game and did it in dramatic circumstances. So I guess we'll have a better sense of this result after what happens with Arsenal tonight.
Right.
But they did what they needed to do.
Okay.
They're in good form.
Goals from Semenyo. That's now 7 goals or assists for Antoine Semenyo in 8 games since joining City. Nico O'Reilly with a lovely second goal, and then Erling Haaland with his first non-penalty goal in the Premier League since Christmas. Very well taken one. It was 2. Arsenal at Brentford. Lim, you're going along. Kai Havertz won't be involved. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks, I think. Is that right?
Is it a muscle injury? So
Yeah, muscular, yeah. That's a big blow. I mean, that's quite significant, I think, especially at a time when they've got other attackers missing.
Right.
And he has been...
And his return.
His return has been really key. I think, you look at someone like Gyökeres's form has really picked up since Havertz came back. I don't think that's a coincidence. Havertz is sort of known as this guy who makes other players play better around him. He's one of those kind of facilitators. He's very intelligent. And it's a worry. I mean, it's a bit like what happened with Rodri coming back from a serious injury. He then picked up a muscular injury, was out for a while. You see this quite often, kind of overcompensating and what have you. So, yeah, I think he's going to be out for a few weeks, misses the North London derby. But yeah, I mean, there are question marks tonight over Trossard, Odegaard and Saka. Saka's obviously been out for 10 days or so since that Leeds game. Odegaard missed the last game. Trossard went off on the weekend against Sunderland. So, yeah, they could really do with some of those players being available because, yeah, Havertz is a big miss for them.
It's a real test of squad depth now, right? Winning the Premier League, it's really no longer about just how good is your first choice kind of starting 11. It's kind of that squad. I mean, City are a great example of this. I mean, a word for Nico O'Reilly, I think, who's been fantastic this season. He's incredibly versatile as well. I mean, I'm amazed I don't hear more talk about him kind of in relation to the England squad for the upcoming World Cup. Someone that can play fullback, can play central midfield. Really, really good technically, really good physically as well. Really good off-ball running, really good on the underlap. It's a really nice finish last night.
Yeah, he was
well.
really good yesterday.
And has kind of enabled that kind of different iteration we see of City now, where they've kind of got this real pace and quality at fullback. Mateus Nunes off the right as a functionally playing a midfielder there, and Pep's spoken a lot about that, of saying that he's a midfielder, but he's got the capacity, he's got the crossing quality, which makes sense when you've got Erling Haaland up top. And City have really lent into kind of being a more transitional team this year, really hitting teams on counter-attacks. Makes sense, they've got the pace, they've added to that with Semenyo, a really good ball carrier. So I think City always seem to reinvent themselves a bit under Guardiola, but I think this kind of way they're leaning into how the Premier League's going more. Often City being, I think, a bit against the grain. They've always been the possession team, the pressing team, and now they're saying, we'll take into win corners, we'll take a long throw now and then, we'll play on the counter-attack. I think it's been really good fun to watch.
Dyche.
Interesting.
I enjoyed the fact this game ended 3-0 as well, because let's be honest, Fulham should not bother turning up to these matches. They should just forfeit, and that forfeit is a 3-0 win. So
Fulham ended up with a higher XG.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, but City basically, were playing at walking pace in the second half.
didn't you see his bizarre run of not playing very well in the second half?
Yeah, it did, yeah. But then they haven't conceded a first half goal in the league since they played Fulham.
And they did once employ Sven Goran
December.
Eriksson, the coiner of the phrase first half good, second half not so good. So makes you think.
Does, doesn't it? We'll find out what happens, of course, on Thursday night in that key Brentford-Arsenal game. Brentford coming off back-to-back victories in the league, away at Villa and then also away at Newcastle. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, Liverpool became the first travelling side to win a Premier League match at the Stadium of Light this season. 1-0. Virgil van Dijk's header, which was then, I thought, touched in off somebody on the line, was it not?
It is like headed in.
Yeah.
Right. It was on target.
Fine.
I was also largely able to watch this game because of the different kick-off times.
Right.
It wasn't a thriller.
Same here. It was the same kick-off
which
time
you
for everyone,
missed.
I think.
Different from City. Huh?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say the first half, which you missed because you were still watching.
Yes, but by this point I was sort of double
Not a lot
screening
happened in
and
the first half of this one, I would say.
Sunderland Liverpool.
It was an attritional match.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's a very very handy win for Liverpool and especially City and United. Sorry, especially Chelsea and Manchester United both dropped points.
Yes, so now just 3 points separating. United in 4th, Chelsea in 5th, and Liverpool in 6th. Crikey.
And Brentford, if they win tonight, will be level with Liverpool. So, yeah.
What a race that would be there and a little bit further up.
Our league. The cursed right back position at Liverpool though suffered with Uturuendo, horrible. Like one of those injuries that when you see it, you're like, you know exactly what happened, and you don't want to watch a replay, but your brain says, just watch it again. Oh no, I shouldn't have done that. It was, and it was quite sweet the way he got up and was like, no, I'll defend this corner. But Liverpool have had a bad thing this season of carrying on playing. They did it at Bournemouth.
Right.
Where putting themselves in dangerous positions because of like a refusal to sort of play the percentages, and he was sort of hobbling around because of his bad injury, and Sunderland had probably their strongest spell for the second half while that was happening.
Sunderland, who have missed Granit Xhaka while he's been out.
Yeah.
Is that the difference between...
I mean, it does feel pretty significant.
Right.
They do lose so much without him. His how good a player he is, but also his presence, how much he's the leader of that team. So yeah, that's been hard. I think there was always going to be a natural leveling off a little bit. I mean,
The underlying numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Their underlying numbers were, a bit Villa-y.
Villa fans, it's time to talk about your brave Aston Villa. 1-0 against Brighton, an own goal from Jack Hinshelwood after Brighton had peppered Emi Martinez's goal. Liam, you were watching this.
Yeah. Peppered might be a bit generous.
All right, then.
There were shots on
Mildly
his goal.
dusted? Okay.
Yeah, there's one really good save from a Ferdy Kadioglu shot from range where he tips it onto the bar. It was quite a decisive touch as well, like it's going to kind of just creep in. Another attritional game, actually. I think the weather this week's definitely contributed to that. I think Brighton were fairly brave. They went pretty man-to-man in the press and putting kind of a lot of high-energy midfielders. Hertzler picked in that team, kind of saying he wanted a response after the defeat at home to Palace, and they definitely got that.
And after Tim Spears' comments on Sunday night, which no doubt
We're pinned up.
I said, can you pin a video in the dressing room?
No,
but I guess you have it.
Someone will have typed those up and handed them out.
Yeah, chanted. Or like Arteta when he gets the tweet up of Tony about nice kick about with the boys. Just
Tim Spears was saying Brighton are, what were his words, a nothing team, I think, without an identity. He also talked about Hertzler being in trouble. I'm not sure what the mood is amongst Brighton supporters like yourself.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of disdain for what I think is something like 1 win in 12 or 11 now.
1 in 13.
1 in 13, okay.
Yeah, Seagulls were 5th at the start of December. doesn't feel like that long ago, but you're already 14th. Basically, it's been relegation form since that high point.
Yeah, they tend to do this a lot in seasons where they start quite well, and there's a reason why they tend to well clear of the drop, kind of plateau a bit in the middle of the season. It wasn't quite as bad last year, but they did actually end last season with a really good winning run at the end, which put them back in European contention. They had big wins against Spurs and Liverpool at the end of the season. I probably come out a bit more on the apologist side with Hertz. So I think overall his job's been quite good. You can look at kind of the points per game record. He's about as good as De Zerbi was. There's also been a lot of clamour for him. But the Spears point is interesting in the sense that they're probably trying to be more flexible, right, than ever before. And kind of there's the balance of, okay, you go from, this is a bit like Spurs kind of going from Postecoglou to Frank in a similar way, where you say, okay, how much does your identity kind of matter? Do you need to be a team where you say, we're always going to play in a repeatable way? We're going to try and score a lot of goals. We're already attacking. That's never really been Hertzler's thing. They don't concede kind of as many now. They're not, ever kind of hit big. They had that one big defeat at Forest about a year ago, and never since then have they kind of been kind of well beaten. But the problem now is that the goals are drying up really. Right. Danny Welbeck had a great run, scored a lot of goals, has had a back injury, he's had to kind of manage. Karim Matoma has come back from injury, not quite looked as sharp, and obviously so much of his game is reliant on his speed. Diego Gomez appeared to have cashed in all of his goals in one game at Barnsley in the League Cup early this year. And just currently they don't really have enough goals in the team.
The Gianluca Vialli approach, that's nice.
Yeah. So the season is petering out a little bit. There's probably fair grounds to sack Hertzler on how poor the run of form has been. But I think this is generally a club where they tend to stick by a coach. De Zerbi had maybe not as bad as this, and Potter as well. Similarly bad kind of long runs. And it's weird, obviously, the amount that they've spent gets held up against Hertzler as well. But the tricky part is this club or this team keep reinventing themselves, right? They keep selling the best players. I think they're second behind Chelsea for the kind of player sales made. Sold their top scorer again last summer, sold João Pedro. So they've got a weird amount of depth in places, kind of like the wingers and the number 10 role, but they're not always in midfield. And at the back, they're quite light. They've not really got a second choice striker behind Danny Welbeck. They've got two Greek youngsters, and one of them is out with an ACL injury. So it's a team that are quite imbalanced, and they're probably about where they should be in the table. I think if it's a season where the promoted teams haven't done as well or been as competitive, then they'd probably be a couple of places higher and points better off. But there's definitely fair clamour for a team.
They're letting James Milner have a few games.
They are, and this has become a weird conspiracy theory among Brighton fans that Fabian Hertz has genuinely been playing Milner in order to get him an appearance record, instead of like trying to win games and see out results.
What would be in it for Hertzler in that scenario?
I think it falls apart very quickly, right? When you go, well,
he loves Premier League trivia.
Hertz is younger than Milner, so maybe Milner's just saying, like, you better play me or I'm going to take your lunch money.
I mean, it's an amazing idea that, that's genuinely what's going on. And it's kind of transpired because Brighton conceded a couple of late goals in games where there was a free kick away to Fulham that Harry Wilson scored in like a centralish position. And people were saying, Milner kind of, his fault that you've conceded it there. There was a really late goal against Everton they conceded, which isn't really any midfielder's fault. It's a cross that Dunk doesn't clear properly, shot comes in, keeper parries the rebound back out to the striker.
But Milner was jogging around the edge of the pitch. At that point,
it's one of those things where I think the club has definitely kind of stalled a bit. And look, I'm maybe this is an easier position for me to have as someone that sees more football teams just because of what I do for kind of this job. But you look at other teams below them that are kind of, we've been speaking about Forest, who are, it's generally a bit mental what's going on there. West Ham as well can be a bit chaotic, where you go, okay, if they're having a bad season, they're 14th. That is okay in the grand scheme of things. It's not good, but like it could be a lot worse. So it's a fine balance between saying, you're right, this is a team and a squad, and the money they spend should be aspirational for Europe. But if this is kind of the drop off, maybe I'm unpopular for thinking this. It's not an absolute nightmare.
Also, like, you're able to zoom out a little bit as well, and obviously fans view it very. And again, you never want to tell fans like, I'm not going to say careful what you wish for or anything like that, but isn't the reality?
Sean Athletic?
Yeah, isn't the reality they'll probably level off and finish about 10th, 11th, like which isn't to say like you shouldn't dream bigger or whatever, but for the job he's doing, I just think if you actually look at it in the round, he's doing a sort of about par job. But obviously it gets boring quite quickly if you feel like you're not going anywhere and you have a bad run, and it's like, well, why don't we change the manager? We've got nothing to lose because they're probably not going to get relegated.
It's a quiet week. Let's change manager.
Well,
lighten things up a bit.
Exactly. Yeah, next week maybe.
Dyche's available.
Nobody likes mid-table, do they? This is the thing.
No one likes a transitional season.
You'd almost rather be in a relegation scrap and have something to fight for in that kind of, I think.
Well,
Charlie uses the phrase zoom out. Well, I remember being in the away end at the Withdean, and you could just about see the nearest goal. So you be on the.
Well, that comes up as a discussion, right? Where there's a kind of a split in the fan base. I'm aware we're talking for hours here on Brighton. We can move this on, but there's fans that will say, okay, you think about where the club's come from, and there's kind of probably a younger generation, probably the generation that I'm in, that say, look, that's just kind of thinking, that doesn't kind of matter anymore. You've earned the right to be this established, settled Premier League club where you say, how long are you going to kind of go, it was bad once, so now we should be grateful for anything? No, we've made it to Europe. We've got to Wembley and had cup runs. We've kind of set the bar there. And I think the actual fair kind of dynamic and probably where the club at is somewhere in the middle of that, right, of saying you can kind of do a bit of both.
But to broaden that to football generally, in the Premier League, I think this season has shown, whether it's Crystal Palace or whether it's Nottingham Forest, whether it's Brighton, whether it's even Newcastle, that you can have success in a season, but unless you're one of the very biggest clubs,
Totally,
you can't just go and again, and it's tough.
All right then, Crystal Palace Burnley. Well, Reuben Pinder finished 3-2. The midweek's maddest game. You were there, and you join us now. Thank you so much. So what actually happened to Southport? Palace were 2-0 up and cruising with the first 2 goals from open play this season from Jürgen Strand-Larsen.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could explain what exactly happened. Chronologically,
yes.
First half an hour goes really well for Palace. 17 minutes and then another 15 later, Strand-Larsen scores 2 really good goals, the sort of goals that have been missing from Palace's season, with Mateta up top. Nice run in behind and a kind of, not a volley, but a kind of ball was bouncing, smashed it past the keeper, and like a really nice low header, proper traditional centre-forward play for the second goal. His chant is being belted around Selhurst.
How does it go, Reuben?
He's Scandinavian, he hates the Albion, which is of course not original, stolen off Wolves, but works for both clubs. And then...
I'm surprised they kept that, because do you care that he hates the Albion?
It's Brighton and Hove Albion.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
That rivalry that everybody forgets.
Yeah.
I thought it was Whitson Albion.
Yeah, I forgot about that Albion.
And then everybody's, the fans are buoyant. It's like, everything's going to be fine. And I feel like that complacency maybe the players had as well, because suddenly every time Palace lost the ball, Burnley were cutting through Palace's midfield, creating chances, not like clear-cut chances, but good enough. And when I was watching the highlights back, I didn't really notice this at the time, but the lack of backwards running when Palace's forward players lost the ball was quite alarming, and they did look quite tired, which I feel like I've said a lot this season, but they are.
And Burnley looked like someone had lit a fire under them.
Yeah, they were impressive on the break, and like this is a classic problem that Palace have had all season. Can't break down low blocks because Glasner is quite one-dimensional. It's mid-block, steal the ball, counter. We can't even really counter that well from defending deeper than that. So it's very like we can only do one thing. And the kind of double whammy effect of not being able to break down the low block is that when Palace lose the ball trying to do that, and it's just kind of like hopeful crosses swung into a crowd of bodies, when that ball gets cleared and the opposition have fast strikers and you have like Will Hughes and Chris Richards kind of trying to chase back, we're also very vulnerable to the counter.
And then Burnley strike motherload with 3 goals in 7
minutes, I think. Yeah.
And go from being 2-0 down to 3-2 up by half-time. Only the second time ever in Premier League history that a visiting team has done that. Who were the other team, Duncan?
Tottenham Hotspur. Away at Newcastle in 1995. Kevin Keegan's Newcastle.
And all that.
A crazy time.
This not Kevin Keegan's Newcastle. This Oliver Glasner's, for now, Crystal Palace. You mentioned complacency there, which certainly rings true from what you're saying. But this is a Crystal Palace side who hadn't won any of their previous 7 games at home. So it feels weird that they would be complacent, even at 2-0 up, unless the whole circumstances of the manager, perhaps, having already announced that he's doing one, meant that everyone's kind of written this season off.
Yeah, it's difficult to really analyse with any great confidence, like how those intangible things are affecting the players. So they definitely shouldn't be complacent from the point of view of thinking they're doing really well, because obviously the form speaks for itself. Over the last 10 games, they'd be bottom of the form table. But I do think that like it's the rare occasion where the cliche of 2-0 is the most dangerous scoreline actually comes true.
I feel that we hear how rare it is.
Something
quite
that's
often.
not happened since 1995. Maybe.
But people still say it, and this was the one rare occasion where it came true. It didn't make any sense. I think there's an element of fatigue, an element of resignation that the manager's going at the end of the season, possibly
could
earlier.
resignation be a word that
Well, I mean, he tried. Managers don't resign anymore, do they? He tried his best to talk himself into the sack.
Deserby did on Monday, actually.
Yeah, he's a unique case. Though,
Okay. Right, yeah, so you don't feel that he'll be stepping down. Might the club... this was his 100th game in charge, sadly, and it ended with the boos ringing out at Selhurst Park.
Yeah, well, it's the sort of form that got Patrick Vieira sacked 3 years ago. Glasner tried his best to talk himself into the sack recently, and Steve Parish didn't bite. That's what it felt like anyway. But now that Thomas Frank yesterday, at the time of recording, was sacked, and Dyche today, this morning. That news broke. Now that those managers are available, maybe...
Really?
Well...
you think Palace were waiting for Dyche and Frank to be available before?
Well, but this is based on no information, but my gut feeling was that Glasner stayed around because Parish didn't have a backup plan.
Right.
Because the toxicity is not helpful to anyone. But now that things are moving in the managerial market, maybe they...
What about Big Ange, if you want a European proven winner?
Yeah, I mean... He might be.
He knows how to take a team 17th, but win a European trophy.
Yeah.
Which is kind of where Palace are tracking.
And at least tries to play attacking football.
Was it the weirdest first half you've ever witnessed at Selhurst Park, Reuben?
Yeah, in terms of the contrast in mood and how quickly it happened, we went from laughing and singing to felt like one of my friends was going to have a heart attack on the brink of half time. There were shouts of sack him in the tunnel.
Really?
Which obviously, it's emotions running high. But
Which obviously didn't happen, but just to be clear.
Yeah, it was really bizarre. I thought I was finally going to see Palace win at Selhurst Park in the Premier League again. We've only won 2 games at home in the league this season against Liverpool with that famous Nketiah last-minute winner. It is famous, thank you. And Brentford, we beat Brentford, but I wasn't there for that game, so I've only seen us win once at home in the Premier League all season.
Right. I mean, there are some fans who haven't even seen once, I guess.
Yeah.
Crikey, what do you think about Burnley after witnessing that first half? They are 9 points from safety still.
I mean, I don't think much about them ever, but they
keep you up at night.
No, they will now. But I mean, yeah, they were somewhat impressive.
Get that in Latin on the pad.
They attacked really quickly. They Anthony and Hannibal scored a good goal. He was very busy in midfield and kind of got away from Kamada and Walton. And kind of he likes to rattle players, doesn't he, Hannibal? But it didn't feel like it was very hard for them to get back into the game. Like the goals that they scored were very much like just a passive defence letting things happen.
Right.
Not to take too much credit away from them. Like they did score 3 goals, but I don't think it's the beginning of a resurgence to survival, put it that way.
Okay, their first win in 108 days and 17 Premier League matches. Reuben, who's up next for Palace? Nothing in the FA Cup, of course, because Macclesfield.
Yep. Thanks for the reminder. A weekend off for the players, and then a trip to Bosnia and Herzegovina, where we play Mostar in the Conference League,
and
then Wolves. So in theory, after the Brighton,
Wolves are good.
Yeah, well,
Ish.
after the Brighton win at the weekend, the thinking was nice run of games now, get the season back on track, and then obviously lose to Burnley midweek. So
no easy games in our league.
All the Conference League apparently, yeah, not done well in that either.
All right, well, best of luck, Reuben. We'll see what further news comes out, given their extended break from Selhurst Park, about the manager's future and plans going forward. For now, many, many thanks, Reuben Pinder.
Thank you.
FA Cup fourth round. It begins on Friday. No less than 2 games on the Friday. Hull hosting Chelsea, so a trip down memory lane for Liam Rosenia. Also Friday, Wrexham host Ipswich Town.
Disappointingly, same division clash.
If it's 2 very different divisions you're after, Duncan, you can't say fairer than non-league Macclesfield FC, who knocked out the holders Crystal Palace, of course, in the 3rd round, in what is statistically the biggest upset in terms of difference of places.
I didn't enjoy that chat.
No?
Macclesfield, a former league club with a very flat pitch.
Right.
I just didn't feel right to me.
Anyway, they knocked out Crystal Palace, and they will now take on another Premier League opponent in the shape of Brentford. Well, actually, it is Brentford, not just Brentford shaped. Arsenal host Wigan Athletic of League One. Manchester City face Salford City of League Two. Salford, who they played last year in the Cup, a narrow 8-0 win that time.
Yeah. Look out on the Athletic tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
For a piece by Conor O'Neill looking at the much suggested thing that City get easy draws in the FA Cup.
Right. What's the answer?
Well, I'm not going to reveal, but there's some stunning findings.
Right.
I hope there's also proof that Brighton get the worst away draws of any team.
Well, we'll see, won't we? But my hunch is that fans of clubs only remember their own club's ties, and that affects their thinking.
Man City, who in the third round faced Exeter City and beat them 10-1.
10-1, yeah.
10-1.
I prefer not to speak.
That Manchester City. All right. Aston Villa, they're in the fourth round after beating Spurs last time. They welcome Newcastle to Villa Park. It's actually the third meeting of the season. The Magpies yet to find the net against the villains. Liverpool play your friends Brighton, Liam. Leeds are off to Birmingham City in an NFL-flavoured clash. Patriots and 49ers.
Yeah.
West Ham goes to League One, Burton Albion. And I think the other fixture is Wolves against Grimsby Town of League Two, who, of course, have already staged a major upset this season at Blundell
Could they be
Park.
on the end of one against Wolves?
Ooh, I see what you've done there, Charlie Eccleshare. Of course, the previous upset was in the League Cup, where they knocked out Reuben Amorim's Manchester United.
Sunderland go to Oxford.
Oh, right.
Their
What are the
famous
games I miss?
Three-sided ground.
Yes.
A real leveler if the wind's up.
And are there any other games that I've forgotten to mention?
There are a few, but Stoke Fulham.
Stoke Fulham's a game. Macclesfield Brentford. That happens on Monday night. John Rooney's side, brother of Wayne, knocking out Crystal Palace. It might not have been the biggest ever for you, Duncan, but it was pretty huge. What are their prospects against Brentford?
I mean, they'll be hoping for the same, won't they? Sort of middle-ish Premier League team from London. I'm sure Brentford will have learnt their lesson. I think what was really striking about the Crystal Palace game was just how lackadaisical Palace were early on, and really, the first few challenges they lost, and that kind of set the tone. You'd imagine Keith Andrews.
Yeah, I was going to say, you wouldn't expect Brentford to be out physicalised.
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. They might relish it.
That's that thing, isn't it? Yeah.
What about Arsenal's game against Wigan?
Crisis Club Wigan.
Well,
Yeah.
So they sacked Ryan Lowe on Sunday, who you may know from his
Calamity.
his habit of speaking about unfortunate events as a calamity. And, well, what an unfortunate event for him, you would have to say, as he gets dismissed this Sunday because of their poor form. They've replaced him with a pair of caretaker managers. Liam, do you know what the caretaker managers are called?
No.
Whelan and Barrow. I love that.
Straight from the Weimar Republic.
Well, slightly niche, but yes. Yeah.
Glenn
Will it
Whelan, of
inflate
course.
their chances
yeah.
of...
Well, as a League One observer, as
Yes.
I am, Wigan were tipped by some to be up in and around the playoffs this season and have really struggled. They've got a very good goalkeeper though, Sam Tickle.
Oh, yeah?
Mr. Tickle, long arms, etc., etc.
Right,
but
right.
he is very good, and I think he will be off to a higher division next season, whatever happens. But
Expect him to be busy.
you
on
would
Sunday.
expect him to be busy, albeit with an Arsenal rotated team.
Right.
But Arteta, even when he rotates, still keeps it fairly strong.
Yeah, though he was pretty rotated for the Portsmouth game in the third round. I mean, these two teams played each other in the FA Cup semi-final 12 years ago.
You went there. That was the last time they met?
That probably was the last time they met. Yeah.
According to my notes, yeah. In the
yeah.
semis, the Gunners just got through on penalties with a certain Mikel Arteta scoring from the spot. It also was the game that featured, I think I'm right in saying, Kim Karlstrom's
Yes.
only contribution in an Arsenal shirt.
Yeah, he scored his penalty as well. I mean, you think the Arsenal fans get talked about as being, hugely neurotic and tense at the moment, but this game came off the back of a 9-year trophy drought.
Right.
It was absolute desperation. And Wigan, I think had beaten City in the previous round, which kind of cleared the way for Arsenal to finally go on and win something. But then they went behind. I think Mertesacker equalised. It was this incredibly kind of tense, frazzled performance. But then actually the penalty shootout, Arsenal scored all of theirs and Wigan missed a couple. But it was an incredibly nervy affair.
Right. The Latics, who won this competition 13 years ago, they have one member of that FA Cup winning side, Callum McManaman, still in the squad. He's now 34. They've also got Jamie Carragher's son playing for them. His name is James Carragher.
Yeah. League One is full of figures from the Premier League sons knocking around. You've got Max Dyche at Northampton. So.
Right. And others. All right. Well, anyway, that's Arsenal-Wigan, which you'd have Arsenal as strong favourites to go through. The man Wigan reportedly want to be their new permanent manager is Exeter boss Gary Caldwell, who was also involved actually in that FA Cup final win for the Latics 13 years ago. More recently, he's been on the bench watching his Exeter side getting beaten 10-1 by Man City in the previous round. City this time around taking on, is it Salford or Salford? I got Salford, yeah. Taking on Salford on Saturday afternoon. Slight derby vibe to this given the ownership structure of Salford, class of 92, and that, not that it stood them in much stead last season when they got done 8-0. Unlikely perhaps to see an upset in that. Where might we see cup magic? Are there any fixtures that you've thought, banana skin potentially here? How about Birmingham Leeds?
Grimsby Wolves.
Okay, how about Grimsby Wolves? Yeah. Well, how about it? Yeah.
What was the thing on Sky Sports when he's doing the World Cup fixtures? He's like, we're here for Brazil. I mean, that just screams banana skin, doesn't it, for Wolves?
Right.
Obviously, already having a bad season. If the weather's also bad, I feel like the last place you want to have a lot of wind and a lot of rain is Grimsby. So kind of I think, I don't know if they think they're already down, but I think everyone else considers them as all but kind of relegated. So kind of the last thing they've got to play for this season is a bit of a cup run of some form, restore some kind of morale. And if you are going to have any chance of kind of, getting back into the relegation fight and then out of it, I think you need kind of a win from somewhere, and the cup feels like a great place to get that.
Okay, Grimsby Town, who have playoff ambitions in League Two. They won 5 of the last 6 league encounters. And we recall how much trouble they gave Man United in the Carabao Cup earlier on. I mentioned Birmingham Leeds, and my rationale was that we were doing a totally extra the other day about Leeds, in which tangentially 2 Leeds fans observed how rubbish they are in the Cup. And Birmingham are a strong team right now, no?
Yeah, Birmingham have come up, obviously massively dominated League One last season. Started okay, but then tailed off, but have sort of come back into form in the last month or so. So they're a good footballing team. I think, I mean, it's a 12 o'clock kickoff, possibly on police advice, but it should be, I could see an upset there.
Okay.
Not many league places between them. I mean, they could, the number of places it could be 2 teams in the same division.
Right.
They're a point off the playoffs. Birmingham, having played a game more.
And Leeds' form on the road this season hasn't been great. So, well, we shall see. Burton Albion hosting West Ham. Might that also be a tricky one?
West Ham are coming back into things. I was at the game this week against Manchester United, and I mean, they were really defensively strong for large parts of that. There's a real feels like an attacking cohesion to them as well, especially out wide. They've got good fullbacks, 2 really good wingers. I mean, think that like Jared Bowen and Crescencio Somerville are kind of starting wingers in a relegation scrapping team. They just feel like they're way above that level, right? That's probably two international footballers come the World Cup. This summer. Again, their problem is conceding goals. Conceding late goals as well has kind of really robbed them of some points. So they could, already kind of be out the relegation zone had they have seen out games better. So I think, and as we spoke about Forest earlier on, that feel like they're on a bit of a nosedive. West Ham feel like they're on the up. But this is also West Ham who have been a bit mental at times this season. So you never want to kind of write them off as ever being too confident that they're going to be just fine.
And you think they would rotate quite heavily.
Right.
Unlike Wolves who have nothing to play for. Obviously, West Ham are right.
They struggled against QPR in the last round, needed extra time. So, all
Very
things are
true.
possible.
Very true. This is the first ever meeting, by the way, with the Brewers of Burton Albion, which means that they are the 150th different team that West Ham have faced in a competitive match. How about that? Any other fixtures that we should or that you will be keeping an eye on this weekend?
No, it does lack that sort of standout
Right.
game,
At
I would
least
say.
ahead of the games being played. Last
Sure.
time we saw
Yeah.
all sorts of unexpected
That's the
tricks.
magic of the famous cup.
It really is. It really is. Well, you know what? We'll just leave it there, wait for it to happen. And Sunday night, we'll get together here in the Totally Studio and talk about what's come out, what's emerged from the fourth round. Today, though, many, many thanks to Daniel Storey, who joined us earlier on, and Reuben Pinder, to you, Charlie Eccleshare, to you, Liam Tharme, to you, Duncan Alexander, and producers Jake and Charlie in the booth. And you, listener, do hope you'll be joining us Sunday night, either on YouTube or hanging around until Monday for the podcast. And for now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.